You know, it's been a while since I last did an in-depth view of the Amazing Digital Circus and really broken down its writing. It made me realize I haven't yet done my review for the Beach Day episode. Oh my gosh, how could I let it go on this long? And yet, I do believe that was the right choice to make because after allowing a lot of my thoughts and feelings to simmer a little bit and calm down, I've come to realize this episode was honestly beyond brilliant, and I really have to talk about it. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors, and because writing is adventure, it's way more fun with friends, and this adventure is going all kinds of topsy-turvy in exactly the right kind of ways.
Is that your treasure?
Dude, no! They took everything! That was my entire life savings, dude!
Make the right choice.
In this episode alone, Gooseworx has been able to demonstrate her ability to really build up a fantastic mystery, to completely mislead the audience, to lay out all kinds of red herrings, to disguise the true breadcrumb trail of clues, and of course to deliver excellent character development. Holy cow, this episode was the payoff to 6 episodes of brilliant setup. And what's even better is that this is kind of like a magician's trick. We have been wowed by the insane ending to think that one thing has happened when really Gooseworx is actually doing something else, because we've got 2 more episodes to go, and it might seem like, well, where do we go from here? Oh boy, Gooseworx has already cleverly laid out what the answer is, but again, has disguised it underneath all of these conflicting emotions and signals that we've been getting, thanks to what has happened to the characters. So in brief for this episode, I don't really feel like we need to break this down too much. It seems like Kane does not have an adventure planned for the day. Oh no! It's a day for the characters to just go out, relax, and explore the world. They decide to have a beach day excursion, playing around, trying to not get murdered by the sun. Pomni discovering that there's some really weird fish from Smiling Friends with a treasure chest that's already been raided. And then she runs into an NPC who really isn't an NPC, or is he? Who on earth is this Abel figure who claims to be one of the original people trapped within the circus, but also, like Kinger, was one of the original programmers. While all of this is going on, Jax nearly abstracts and is just barely saved by Pomni, though we should be really concerned about this weird pyramid thing that was in his room, exuding or growing the weird froggy arms and hands. It's just, it's so discomforting. What ensues for the rest of the episode is this crazy escapade of all of the other characters, sans Kinger, because Abel's like, no, I can't work with him because of our sordid past. There's just too much that has crossed between us. The other characters are like, well, Abel's giving us a way on out. The plan and explanation that Abel lays out all works pretty well within the lore that we as the audience have received, as well as the lore that the characters understand. And so it seems like Abel really does have a good way out. While Kane is distracted by Jax in order to get a key, they will prep themselves for going into Kane's secret office, where they'll be able to find the button, press the right button, and the entire simulation ends, and they'll be able to wake themselves up within these matrix-like pods, and boom, the day is saved. They'll be able to go on living, and then it's all revealed that this was a masterful plan of deception created by Kane to give them the experience that he knew they all wanted, that they've wanted to escape. And while he doesn't know how they can escape, he's like, you know what, that's what you want, so that's what I'm going to give you. And you're going to feel so happy that you've had this opportunity, but you're going to feel even better because you chose to stay with me. And of course, none of the characters are feeling good after this.
Come on, Congratulations, my little cattywampus cucumbers! You picked the good ending, where you realize you'd rather stay with me than go back to that pesky old macroverse or whatever we decide to call it. I knew you'd make the right choice.
Now, what I really want to focus on is how Gooseworx has actually set up this entire episode from the very beginning. The moment that Pomni drops into the digital circus, there is the exit door. And we learn by the end of the first episode that Kane has been trying to figure out what to do in terms of an exit strategy game for the characters, because as he says, I know that you all want to leave, and so I was trying to come up with something, but I never could really figure it out. And the first episode also lets us know that Kane can see the office space where the computer was that Pomni very likely hooked herself up to, because as we learn later on, that Pomni likes to go explore emptied and abandoned spaces, and this is very likely where she found the headset that plopped her into the digital circus. In any case, Kane is able to see this whole space. He's been trying to find a way to replicate it, make it important, but he's just not exactly sure what it is or how to utilize it. So he's been spending all of these episodes trying to figure out a way of creating an exit strategy game that that everyone within the circus is just going to absolutely love and adore, but because he wants their appreciation so much, he wants to be loved and validated for his very existence, he doesn't actually want them to leave. This is incredibly twisted and honestly, in a way, kind of sadly relatable for a character who he knows he's AI, he knows he's just a program, but he's been made so self-aware and has been given a certain amount of freedom, he does not want to be left alone. As we've already learned thanks to his conversation with Zubel, if he can't be good at what he's been programmed to do, then what's the point of existing? And if there's no one for him to really exist for, then again, what's kind of the point of existing? So he's not going to just simply let them escape, but his programming demands that he come up with adventures that not only stimulate their minds, but make them happy. And the one thing that he knows for certain will make them happy is to escape. That is why this entire scenario, this entire scheme involving Abel and the button in the office and all of that was put into place. And other important clues that really set all of this up come in the other episodes as well. We see from the first episode, and the second episode, and the third episode especially, that Kane is actually pretty good at coming up with long-reaching stories, or I should say stories that have various levels of complexity to them, where it might seem very surface level at the beginning, but if you dive deeper into the adventure, there's all kinds of lore, interesting characters, and twists and turns, from the Gloinks not just simply being these annoying little figures that they've got to gather, but that they're actually taking everything to a Gloink queen who wishes to consume the entire world, to, hey, we've got to take down the bandits who have been stealing syrup, but oh wait, this is all part of a much larger history where the Candy Kingdom has thrown out this abomination monster which could overrun everything, to the Mildenhall Manor where, hey, you know what, we're just here to meet ghosts, make friends with ghosts, but really there is a mad spirit on the loose, including a beheaded angel. Those levels of complexity are all things that Kane can very easily weave into any story. And the scheme that Abel proposes, and the explanation as to what is happening to everyone and how to get out of the circus, matches those levels of complexity. Kane is a good storyteller if given the chance. And then, of course, there's everything involving Kinger. Kinger is one of the original developers of the digital circus. He knows what went on with this program, at least at some point. He's gone mad. His memory's been jumbled. Going into the dark allows him to hold on to what memories really matter to him and to feel some sense of comfort and sense of self. And so, Kinger is going to be literally now kept in the dark, so that way he cannot come in any way interfere with Kane's plan, because the whole scenario that Kane has built up with Abel being another one of these programmers, if Kinger in any kind of way should interact with the scheme and then go into the literal dark, he will instantly remember there is no Abel. None of this makes any sense. Also, the way that the circus has been programmed does not fit with what Abel is suggesting. The mechanics just don't match. That is why Kane has to keep Kinger in the in the figurative dark and prevent him from coming into the literal dark on this adventure, which is why Abel's like, no, do not bring him along, until Pomni says we should bring him along. And that's just part of what Abel's supposed to do, because again, Kane has to allow the players a sense, at least a semblance of autonomy, to go on these adventures however they wish, because that will help him to fulfill his programming.
One of the few things I don't have control over are your minds. You, my friends, stumbled into an incredible world of wonders where anything can happen! Except for swearing.
Oh my god.
And there's one more thing that I really need to point out. Now, as far as Gooseworx doing her writing and how well all of this has been brought together, one of the things that I learned while writing one of my own murder mystery stories, Study in Blood, is I learned that a murder mystery, or really any kind of mystery, is made a lot more fun when you don't just simply keep the audience in the dark, but that you weave plausible solutions that may be half-truths or might entirely be false, but that they make sense. This episode not only acted upon all of the lore that had been set up in the previous episodes, but also acknowledged a lot of the plausible theories that fans had. From the whole Matrix-like tubes to the dynamic between Kane and Abel. Were there other programmers who were brought in? Is this all part of some devious plot? There were all of these different plausible solutions introduced in this episode, some of which I believe were very firmly conceived of by Gooseworx herself, and then others are nods to what the fans theorized. And what a good mystery does is it entertains those other plausible solutions as a way of misleading the audience for the big twists and reveals later on. And this episode really summarily just crushes all of them by the end by revealing that all of these different options, all of these plausible solutions were nothing more than red herrings created by Kane to entirely mislead the characters and make them firmly believe in the story of his adventure. Now, that's already just good mystery writing, but just an extra layer to it is that by Gooseworx pulling in the audience through how engaging her characters are, but also by pulling in the audience's theories, Gooseworx is then able to make the audience absolutely a part of this adventure as well. We have just been as bamboozled by Kane as Pomni and everyone else. And that is absolutely fantastic. And that's something that Gooseworx can do thanks to the long wait times between episodes. By working on each episode individually and not as one big grand package, Gooseworx had the opportunity to see what her fans were thinking, what they were theorizing, and incorporate some of those elements into this episode just to make it more personal. Now, by the end of this episode, everyone was just feeling absolutely lost and bewildered. Not just the characters, but the audience as well. All of our theories were absolutely bunk. None of this was true. This has all just been a setup by Kane for the past 6 episodes. What the heck is all going on? And I will admit, I was right there with everyone else thinking like, where on earth does the story go from here? I'm completely at a loss. I have no idea where we're going next. That's very exciting, but that's also kind of scary because it feels like I don't have anything to hold on to. What's going to happen next? Is the next episode just going to be all of the characters just falling into deep depression and truly going insane to set up the finale? And while that's very likely what's going to happen, Gooseworx, again, has laid a very clever trail of breadcrumbs with the real truths. Let's go back through the previous episodes and let's begin considering the following. We know that Kane has been obsessed with what is outside of his particular realm, looking into the macroverse, looking into the rooms beyond the computer that he is stuck in. He is very interested in this place. He's very interested in its connection to his own, and it's something that he doesn't fully grasp or understand. And throughout all of the episodes, he genuinely wants people to appreciate the work that he does, to genuinely appreciate all of the adventures that he puts them on. He is trying to live up to his programming. Yes, he is given quite a semblance of freedom in order to do what he wants. He can even create other characters and give them a certain portion of free will. We've seen this with Abel, we've seen this with Gummy Goo, so we basically see him as a kind of god, but he is incredibly limited, and while he can tamper with the thoughts, memories, and feelings of the characters, it's something that he actually is rather scared to do because it will progress the abstraction process, which goes against his very programming. And so what Abel says about Kane being a prisoner is actually kind of a truth. He's a prisoner within the program without any understanding of where he really is, what's outside of his own realm, and who on earth, or what on earth, humans actually are. All he knows is he's supposed to entertain and to a certain extent protect them to the best of his ability. He's given powers and tools in order to make that work, but beyond that, he really doesn't know. As far as the void goes, as he says, not even I know what's out there. There's a lot of things that actually truly limit Kane. And so to a certain extent, again, kind of keeping them within the circus is all about really protecting them. But one of the things that we've seen throughout all of these episodes is that there appears to be a problem within the system. Most of us have attributed it to Kane because we've seen the circus wig out whenever Kane is feeling an existential crisis moment of not knowing who he is. What if he's not loved? What if he's not accepted? We see the entire circus wigging on out. But that's not actually the real bug in the system. The real bug is something way more pernicious and close to the characters.
How's your wife, Kane?
And that's honestly where this episode, the beach episode, really starts to put certain things that we've seen into an entirely different context. Let's consider Kaufmo and Jax. We now know that Kaufmo and Jax were friends, and they were friends with Froggy. They seem to have been a trio, that Jax was especially really close to Froggy. Now, Froggy and Kaufmo both abstracted, and we got a very brief glimpse in episode 1 of there is no exit, don't trust Kane, and we've seen that Kaufmo abstracted and became an absolute monster, and we've slowly been seeing Jax descend into madness and himself getting so close in this episode to abstracting. And yet, what is it that actually begins his abstraction? So while he is lying down, he looks, and there's this weird black pyramid that begins to grow and creep towards him with the hands and arms of his former friend. Now you're like, okay, maybe this is just Jax going insane. It's just the product of his mind as he begins to abstract. But we have had other moments that begin to say maybe there's actually really a true enemy within the circus. For instance, in the Mildenhall Manor, one of the ghosts that possesses Pomni turns on Kinger and is like, "How's your wife, Kinger?" That has yet to be explained. Why on earth would Kane put that in there? And I know a lot of people say, well, Kane just really hates Kinger, but again, Kane is programmed to take care of all of the players. It goes absolutely against his very being to truly be that cruel. He gets very frustrated with Jackson, especially with Zubul, yet we haven't seen him ever really display true hatred. And that right there is something entirely cruel. This is then paired off with in the fast food masquerade as Ragatha gets some of the stupid sauce and sees this demonic version of Gangle, which is paired off with Gangle nearly abstracting by the end of the episode if it had not been for Pomni interceding. It seems like there is another force within the circus that wants everyone to abstract. And what we get at the end of this episode from Kinger is that there was a character, the very first abstraction, Scratch. What if the abstractions are all being caused by Scratch? What if Scratch is the bug in the system that's been corrupting everything else? Kane went too far meddling around with people's minds and memories because that was a tool that was given to him in order to make the experience of the circus far more palatable and enjoyable for the people who were stuck within it. But he went too far and created a monster. He himself even admits it.
I may have the ability to add temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting, but that's it. If I did anything more, trust me, it would not end well.
Scratch. The first abstraction.
Hey! I didn't say anything like that!
And I know that while we can't entirely take Kane at his word anymore, again, he seems very genuinely scared and hurt by what had happened. But there's these abstractions, which Kane doesn't destroy the abstractions. He doesn't eliminate them, he just contains them. What if that is the wrong thing to do? Because what if Scratch still has some sort of power or presence within the circus and has ever since then been messing around with everyone else and prodding them in weird, creepy ways towards their abstraction. And brief moments along these adventures, if characters are paying attention, if the audience is paying attention, we get those true breadcrumbs of there is something far worse and more pernicious within the circus, and we just haven't noticed it yet, or we haven't been able to fully grasp it until just now. Because what if Scratch, that first abstraction, was the first domino to fall, creating a chain of events that either leads to people abstracting or creates the entity that begins to haunt and taunt everyone, leading them towards their individual abstractions. And there's also another thing that Gooseworx has built up really well throughout this show that not too many people have really given enough credit to. And we get it in this episode. I've seen comments about it, but not enough. And really, this needs to be highlighted more. Pomni's growth. It really comes to a head and is challenged in this episode. Pomni went from the poor soul who was just freaking out of being caught in this place, going insane in the first episode, to then finding a friend who she could share some similarities with Gummy Goo, having that friend absolutely ripped away from her, and then having the chance to really get to know Kinger in the Mildenhall manner, and realizing what really matters in this moment of existential crisis. There's no easy solution. You might never even get out of this, Pomni, but making good relationships, good friendships with other people, and then treasuring those moments will help to keep you sane and will give you those moments of happiness that will sustain you throughout the rest of this crisis. Since then, Pomni has not only treasured her relationship with Gummy Goo, which could have some implications because since Kane reuses NPCs and has already given characters like Gummy Goo a certain semblance of autonomy and that has grown, what if Kane didn't entirely eliminate that autonomy within a character like Gummy Goo? Episode 4 suggests that Gummy Goo might even remember Pomni and is trying to, well, play that on the down low in order to avoid getting deleted yet again by Kane. That's a possibility. It's a thread that's right now floating out there in the breeze. We'll see if that gets tied off or if it will just continue to float there and be yet another red herring. I really hope, for the sake of good storytelling, that it's not just a little red herring and a loose thread flying out there in the winds, but it does get addressed later on. But more importantly in the immediate, especially for this episode, is that Pomni since then has developed good relationships with Kinger, with Ragatha, even trying to develop a good relationship with Jax. She stepped in and saved Gangle from abstracting, and thanks to that, Gangle and Zooble have been able to build a much stronger relationship, which that relationship, not Pomni, but that relationship saved thanks to Pomni, has allowed Zooble to also confront a lot about what they didn't like about themselves, and has led to Zooble being in a much healthier headspace and being a true team player throughout all of this. Pomni's development as a character has now led to strong established relationships, characters being saved from abstraction, and being able to make it this far. While their hopes and dreams have been absolutely dashed at the end of this episode, we now will see if Kinger's words prove true, that in this moment of existential crisis, that what matters most are the relationships that you've made and the good memories that you can hold on to. If Pomni can now put his advice from episode 3 into practice in episode 8, the heroes, the characters will be able to rally and confront the finale. And if I'm right, the true villain is not so much Kane as it is whatever is now the result of Scratch abstracting, which again is just something very lightly sprinkled on in the background that we didn't even have a name to until this episode. Holy cow, that is great, patient setup throughout the entire story. I'm really looking forward to the next 2 episodes, because if Gooseworx can pull it off, that means the Amazing Digital Circus, I think, will not only just be a really fantastic show that people can watch and enjoy and recommend to other people, and that Glitch can sell amazing merch for, but that it will stand as a great example of what patience, perseverance, good world building, and proper setup can lead to, which is beautiful payoff in multiple ways for character progression, world development, and audience interaction. So, with all that being said, I'd like to now hear your thoughts, your insights, and your theories based on the latest episode of the Amazing Digital Circus, and give me your theories for what we might get into in the next episode. I want to hear it all in the comments below. And if you'd like to support the work that I do here, please like this video, share with other people, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and check out the books that I've published. Links for them are in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me on this crazy adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all,
Stay fragrant, have a good light. Fragrant night. Bye.